Welcome to the SCL podcast, filmed in the MD Acoustics anechoic chamber at their testing facility in beautiful Gilbert, Arizona. In this episode, we're joined by Kieren McCord, a building research scientist at the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. Kieren's work explores how architecture impacts people through acoustics and environmental design. With a PhD from Arizona State University, she puts science into practice to create healthier and more sustainable spaces.
Your journey, how did you get here?
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to. So I'm Kieren McCord, and I started my journey, like most of us, at birth, right? But shortly thereafter, I was 4 years old and started loving piano.
Okay.
So music was very early on in my life as one of my passions. Started taking lessons pretty early, carried that on through high school, and decided to study music for my undergraduate degree.
Okay. I heard that you're an excellent pianist. So
thank you.
That's what I've heard.
I love it.
Yes. Okay. So that's what got you into
into acoustics.
Into acoustics. Okay.
But it wasn't quite. It was A to B, right? There was a lot of in between. So got interested in music. Piano is the instrument I primarily played, but I have actually, I think I counted at one point, 14 instruments that I can play. And so piano was the first. Violin's probably my second love, but a whole slew of others. Got really interested in that and knew I wanted to study music in school, but hated performing.
Yeah.
So I was like, how's this going to work? I didn't think that through. I think it's because our brains aren't fully developed, at the end of high school. So I'm going to study this, but I don't want to perform. So what else is out there?
Okay. So were you ever concerned about I love this. This is what I really enjoy. I'm going to go to school for this, but how am I going to make this a career? Or how did that transition go?
It went well because I just felt good about it and went forward, not knowing the end from the beginning. But it went well because of BYU's program. So I went to Brigham Young University in their commercial music program. Fantastic program. There's the audio engineering track in that program. Something that I had very little knowledge of or familiarity with, but it's all the behind the scenes of when you're recording music, what happens with that signal? How can we modify that signal? How can we, do these really fun things with the music that I love? But then there's this technical side that I always really liked.
Yeah.
So that started my journey, and you have to take physics credits to graduate from college, right? So there's Physics 167 at BYU. It's a course that's the acoustics, the physics of sound, right? Acoustics. So I'm like, oh, wait, that sounds like a good fit. So I took that course with Dr. Tracy Nielsen. Okay. I think you've had her on here before.
We've had her on here, yes.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
She's awesome, yes.
So I took that because of my interest in music. And she has us do a research project in that class. And as a musician, I figured I could do something related to that. Did a little study on noise exposure in the practice rooms at BYU. So it turned into paper, didn't think much about it, went on a mission for the church, and then came back and remember that she had written something on that paper. She had written, if you're interested in research, come talk to me. Mm-hmm. So 2 years later, I go and I'm like nervous with this paper. I'm like, you told me I could come talk to you. And she's like, she received me with just this openness and warmness and was like, yes, let's do research.
That's awesome.
So I added a physics minor and a math minor and started getting involved with the BYU Acoustics Research Group. Started learning about all of the opportunities there are. Architectural acoustics became a really big interest of mine. So that led me on to what I studied for my master's at the University of Nebraska. Okay. I did architectural acoustics there and did some really fun and interesting work. Had an amazing advisor, Lily Wang, and she was really instrumental in shaping, my knowledge as well as my trajectory, involvement in Acoustical Society of America. So I guess that was kind of the start.
That's like the catalyst.
Yeah.
So literally, just to recap, because this is good. I'm just hearing this for the first time, so this is great. For those that know you, probably have heard it, maybe, I hope. And if they haven't, I'm hoping this is inspiring, because music was your passion. A little bit of research on instrument rooms or band rooms, right, at BYU, understanding that, or sound exposure to that.
Right.
You're a music major, you said?
Yep, music major.
Then you went over to University of Nebraska, in Lincoln, Nebraska. Dr. Lily Wang.
Yep.
I've seen her name, right?
She's awesome.
I've actually seen news articles, like U.S. news publications for restaurant noise. I've seen that. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you're a product of that and studying. So talk a little bit about that. Like, what did you do in architectural acoustics? I mean, this is the first time I'm hearing about. I mean, I know the program, but maybe you can share a little bit about that.
Sure, yeah. The program there is super awesome. Yeah, and I actually did a little bit of preliminary work on that restaurant noise before I graduated from there, and then Sam Underwood has taken that and just done amazing work with the restaurant acoustics world. I was part of a project that looked at understanding the indoor environment and how it impacts student performance. So we had our acoustics piece, and then we also looked at indoor air quality. We had collaborators at UNL for that, and lighting. So all those three together collected a ton of information in schools and looked at how those parameters kind of influence the student experience at school. There was a team before I came to UNL, they had collected all this data in a couple hundred schools actually, looking at time logged data and looking at student scores, being able to understand how this indoor environment really either sets our students up for success or is hindering them in some way.
Really?
So it's really interesting to see how noise could potentially influence like math and reading scores, which is a huge deal in the country, right? We want to be able to set up students the best that they can be. So looking at noise during the school day and also that background noise that's ever present in schools.
Interesting. So you found, what do you know, like the basis, or like what's the findings?
The findings were that some of the noise actually was statistically significant in impacting the math scores for students. So that's one of those really big pieces that when we can look at, the noise that we have in schools, and if there's any way to be able to bring that down, we're just giving students a little bit more chance to be successful.
To be better. Areas. Interesting. I wonder what percentage that would be. I mean, did you see, like, if you were to say, oh, you get a 10% improvement?
I don't know that exact number per se. We just knew that it was a significant correlation.
That's cool. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, okay, so you graduate there in architectural acoustics. So that's an actual program from University.
Architectural engineering, emphasis in acoustics.
Emphasis in acoustics. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Graduate there. All right, and then where are we at?
So in that time, kind of scattered throughout, I had a few formative internships, which were really fun. So I worked at Copeland, what's now Copeland. They have a sound and vibrations lab. So I did that. Actually, that was during my undergrad years, but I worked in their sound and vibrations lab testing, the compressors that go into HVAC equipment, learning so much from that team and how industry looks at noise testing. So that was really instrumental in kind of getting my first foray into the technical side of things. I interned during my master's years with the FBI in the audio forensics division.
Wow.
That was really interesting. Really amazing group of people and all that they're doing in the audio forensics to keep us safe and learn about things like that. And then I also interned with the Naval Research Labs doing some signal processing, underwater signal processing. So lots of different industry experiences, be able to see what's out there. And what stood out to me during those experiences is how welcoming everybody is and how open they are to letting you learn technical skills. Because sometimes you get nervous before going into things like this. I'm like, I don't know how to do advanced signal processing right now with an array of speakers or microphones. I don't know this. Am I going to be able to succeed? That's not what you need to have going in. You need to have a curiosity, an aptitude, an openness to receiving, the information. You can learn the technical side as long as you're willing to, put in the work.
That's awesome. That's good. That's good feedback, right? So like you said, just basically if you're willing and you have great mentors, they can kind of bring you up to speed, it sounds like, in terms of doing that. And obviously some technical chops a little bit, but it can be learned.
It can be.
That's awesome. All right, so that I would want to dive into more of that, but out of that internship, if you had a grade 1 through 3, let's say, right, like the 3 that you just gave us, which was the most interesting, we'll call it?
Ooh.
Or would you say the most rewarding?
They were rewarding. Oh, that's going to be really hard. They were rewarding in different ways.
You're like, I don't want to offend anybody.
Well, I don't know if I can, because I learned so much from those.
Yeah.
From those internships. I think what I took away were technical skills, right? But I think I learned from those how to be a good mentor. Were most of these located East Coast then, it sounds like, or where were these based? Were they, you know what I mean? Because these internships they're in person, so you're a student in Nebraska, but then you have to move for a month or 2 or 3, whatever it is. Yeah, Copeland was Ohio, and then the other 2 were DC area. DC area, okay, cool. Yep. Yep. So those were really, really interesting, informative. And then I, after that, followed with my PhD at Arizona State, which is why I've ended up here in Mesa. I'm local to you guys, to MD Acoustics. Yep. That's what made me move out here.
So you're a doctor. You're a professor. Yep. Well, not a professor, but you're
Doctor.
Dr.
Kieren McCord.
That is amazing.
Usually still have people call me Kieren. But,
right. Well, that's good. That's awesome. So you were at ASU? Arizona State University?
Arizona State University.
And what did you study there?
I was in the School of Sustainable Engineering in the Built Environment. So I did the buildings thing, kept with that buildings piece. And I got to study under Dr. Stephen Ayer when he was there in his Building Information Modeling Lab and Emerging Technologies Lab. And I developed augmented reality simulations to be able to teach building design and construction to students. And I tested the efficacy of those. So you're probably hearing, where's the acoustics? A little bit of audio in the processing.
This is open to everything. It doesn't have to be acoustic. We have, I hope we bring more people that are outside the field, right? Like that's the whole point. So this is awesome. So yeah.
Yeah, that was very focused on building design and construction and be able to understand how to best equip, the up and coming workforce with the knowledge and skills they need. We know that one of the best ways to learn things is hands-on.
Yes.
But what if you can't take a class of 100 students to be able to build something together? What if that's just not feasible? Is there a way to simulate that in augmented reality that gives at least a part of the skill set meaningfully to students? So that's what I studied.
Wow. Okay. That makes sense. That's really cool. Yeah. I mean, to build something, especially with different materials, you have to handle them differently, right?
Yes.
So you probably understand. Talk to me a little bit about, obviously understanding how to do that. Do you understand the energy it takes to do that, or besides just the material science part of it? I mean,
the focus I think would be less on necessarily the material handling. Like if you want to know what wood feels like, you're going to pick up wood.
Sure.
But what about the mental processing and the mental energy you need to be able to walk to a site, evaluate what's there, understand what needs to happen, and what sequence things need to be in.
I see.
That was more of the focus, to be able to understand, can we teach construction sequencing, all of the thought that goes into planning beforehand? Can that be something that people capture in a virtual environment?
In a virtual environment. All right. Well, maybe you came here and you were probably already automatically evaluating our own facility and building as you're going through. What did they do here? That's funny. Well, that's awesome. So today, so after that, you get your PhD, and what's the next step after that?
Next step was a postdoc at Pacific Northwest National Laboratory.
Okay.
And that's where I work now. I'm a full-time scientist at the lab. So I started off as a postdoc in the building systems group. So you can see that little building focus kind of starting to solidify in my background there. That's one thing I always reflect on. It's very circuitous, when you are going through your life journey, but when you look back, you're like, oh, that led to that, led to that, led to that, and here we are. So I am in the building systems group. I do a lot of work on indoor environmental quality in buildings, especially looking at touch points with energy. So we are a Department of Energy national laboratory owned by the Department of Energy, run by Battelle, but owned by DOE. And we do things that are important to our country's energy systems.
Sure.
So part of that is how the energy that our buildings use, which our buildings are a significant contributor to all the energy use in our world. You can imagine why that would be.
Of course, yeah.
But how are they impacting the people in them, and how are we impacting the building's use? So I like to think that I live at the intersection of people and buildings.
Okay. So you said indoor building environment?
Indoor environmental quality.
Indoor environmental quality. Mm-hmm. Specifically, and you talk about the energy. So just talk a bit about, like you said the intersection of kind of everybody, all the people at that point. What, in terms of indoor environmental quality, what does that really, if you were to explain it to an eighth grader?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
IEQ, indoor environmental quality. It's just, it's how the building makes you feel, whether it's conscious or unconscious.
Okay.
And there's a lot of parameters that go into that. So there's the auditory piece that you guys are used to thinking about all the time, the acoustics, right? It's, noise can impact us consciously, or it can be something that's giving us, stressing our our systems constantly. There's the lighting element of that.
Okay.
There's the indoor air quality, and there's a whole, that's a whole deep field in and of itself of which contaminants are present in the air and what impacts they have on people, and what, how our building contributes to those contaminants or protects against them. So those factors, being able to study how those impact people, but also how the building system itself contributes to those.
Okay. So does that mean, like, because you're talking about indoor air quality, for example, and is this going to be simulated? Do you actually go out and grab real world data? Can you talk to me a little bit about that? How does that work?
Yeah, I'd say both of those.
Okay.
Right now we're working on a project trying to quantify these benefits related to energy retrofits. So when you have a building, and it's maybe using more energy than you'd like, what are your options, right? You can strengthen the building envelope to be able to keep the thermal energy in or out, whatever the case may be.
Sure.
Or you can change the building's systems. So we can do all those things, and we typically do those to save energy. But what are the other effects? What are perhaps the benefits that are also happening in terms of indoor air quality or noise? So if you install a new system with better ventilation, you're making your air more fresh.
Yep.
So let's, see if we can put a number to that and say, if we're making an energy retrofit, what can we say about the benefits to our air quality? What can we say about if we strengthen our building envelope? What can we say about the amount of noise from aircraft that's being blocked or from traffic that's being blocked? Is there more comfort and privacy in your building? Can we put a number to that? So that involves some simulation. And we also have the opportunity to do some measurements in field, or we have this really cool facility called the laboratory homes, which is 2 homes side by side, a test case and a baseline case. And these are single family homes, 3-bed, 2-bath, and they're exactly what you'd expect from a normal home, except the fact that they're not occupied. No one's living there. They're specifically for testing new systems, new energy equipment, new building materials, things that you might put into your home for energy efficiency's sake. Can we test those in a very controlled case in what would be like a real environment, but you don't have any of those confounding factors?
Sure. Yeah. That's cool. So where is that located? And by the way, we're going to, if it's a link we can show, we're going to show it. Right?
Cool. Yeah. Those are in Richland, Washington.
Okay. Richmond, Washington.
Richland.
Yeah. Richland. Okay. That's awesome. So you have these 2 units. And so, because you were asking, one of the questions I also had was, you were talking about like these buildings. I was wondering, is it like across a swath of different types of buildings? Like you're talking residential homes, but what about industrial or is this more focused on residential, commercial, industrial?
The project is starting in the residential world, but there are applications across the whole building stock.
Okay.
So we've got DOE sometimes thinks of things in terms, well, I'm not speaking on behalf of DOE, but a lot of the work we do is divided in terms of residential and commercial construction.
Got it. Okay.
So we're looking at residential right now, but commercial includes things like schools, hospitals, large multifamily units are often lumped with the commercial space because they're just a whole different beast than like a single family home. So yeah, this kind of work has application across the buildings you live in, the buildings you work in, the buildings you learn in, and where things are manufactured, all of those cases.
And so you talk about the building skins, or like, let's talk obviously the residential homes. So I got to think like you have some information, not that you got to divulge it here, but like stucco as opposed to like a shiplap, or like not a shiplap, but like a side, I don't know. I'm trying to think of the
like siding,
and
that's brick exterior.
That's right.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Different exterior information. Mm-hmm. So you kind of look at all that and understand a lot more about the efficiencies of all of that, right?
Oh yeah, that's really, really interesting question there. There's actually a resource we can share as well that we leverage a lot. It's called ResStock, and there's also ComStock, and these are Department of Energy funded resources that anyone in the whole world can access and use.
Okay.
It's basically the entire U.S. building stock modeled in energy models.
Interesting.
And it's, again, publicly accessible, and we look at it a lot because what they are is basically a set of millions of energy models. They're really based on a core set of models that are scaled and placed in different geographies and different features like that. But they're a set of like building prototypes, and then this ResStock and ComStock, it gives an idea of what our entire U.S. building stock looks like. So if we have these energy models, What's to stop us from adding additional information to them? That's what I'm looking at, is being able to tie these energy models with known acoustic information of different exterior assemblies.
Cool.
Can we tie those together meaningfully? So we could say, this is our energy savings, but also here's our change in the outdoor-indoor transmission class.
Okay.
So we've got some work coming out in that area pretty soon here.
That's amazing. I like that. So, and maybe you're looking at trends like this already, but I'm guessing, right? Does this sound fair to say this? The more energy efficient, would it be better acoustics? Or I'm guessing like if you seal off the perimeter as best as you can or make it as airtight.
Yeah, generally.
Generally,
that's the case. It's
Okay.
not exactly a one-to-one, right?
Sure.
We know with energy, our value is typically what matters, how much it's insulated against the thermal
Interesting.
transfer.
I could go into that and have
Yeah.
so many questions, but we're not going to go there
Yeah,
yet.
we don't have to go there.
Yeah.
But generally, the more you save energy, the more you're blocking noise. It's really a win-win
Okay.
for both. It's not linear per se, but
That's awesome. So in your career, what would you say so far has kind of been a challenge for yourself? Is there something that you've come across that you're like, this is just really challenging and difficult? That's my first question. And if
great
you don't, good for
question.
you.
Oh, I do, for sure. I'm trying to think of which one. I think self-doubt and time management are
Okay.
probably the two. So self-doubt, I think, or imposter syndrome, or whatever you want to call it, just going into something new, not knowing it, is something that, can be intimidating.
Sure.
But if you're going to do the thing, you probably don't already know the thing.
Sure. Yeah, that's right.
So, it's something that's necessary and to get out of your comfort zone. But I think being able to maintain a healthy amount of curiosity and humility, but also balancing that with the confidence that I can learn this, I can solve this problem, and I can, create a really great, product from this.
That's awesome. So, okay, what's been the most rewarding?
The most rewarding is probably seeing others succeed. Success yourself feels good, and it's nice to have the great publication or the award or whatever happens. But for me, seeing those that I've mentored or, helped even usher in the right direction, seeing them succeed, that has been the most rewarding by far.
Wow, that's interesting. That's awesome. So it sounds like you talked a little bit about mentorship. So obviously your academic journey is longer than I'd say the average, right? Because you went and got your PhD.
Yeah.
Right. But along that course or along that journey, you obviously work with a lot of we'll say students and kids and, growing up and getting older, and their lives go different. So it sounds like you've had a lot of interaction there. Then you're in a place where you're working and you get to work with other people. And so it sounds like it's just been one good experience about working with others and obviously being kind and all that stuff, but really just learning and providing mentorship. So
sure.
That's awesome. That I feel the same way personally. It's like once you kind of get to a point where you're like, hey, I've done all this stuff. Not that it's all about me, but how do you elevate others? It just makes it even better, right? It makes the journey better. What I heard this that you just released a publication.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, this one's really exciting. So at PNNL, we have a team that's looking at occupant decision making.
Okay.
So what makes people decide to buy this energy efficiency technology? Again, it's under the energy efficiency umbrella. And what are people's priorities, and how do those drive things? And we collected a bunch of information that can be used alongside, for example, the census. We have all the information about your demographics, but then we also have this super valuable piece about what are people thinking.
Interesting.
So we have this data set that was collected with nearly 10,000 responses across the country.
Okay.
And this project has been going on for a while. It's led by my good colleague, Chrissy Antonopoulos. And so we had this huge data collection effort, and this recent publication is the data set being published for anyone to use. So it's really exciting. We got that published in Nature Scientific Data, and now it's out there, and anyone who's curious about residential energy decision making can go use this and answer the research questions that they have.
Interesting. Can you dive into a little bit about what that data shows or shares?
Sure, yeah. So we looked at people's adoption of technologies in their home.
Okay.
And it ranges from, did they make a modification to their yard landscaping? Did they change the materials in their walls? Did they change their HVAC system? If so, what was it before? What is it now? Did they get a new appliance? So then we have all of that.
What about solar?
We have solar in there as well.
I was going to say, solar is a hot topic. Okay, cool.
It is a hot topic, and we do have a little bit of information on whether people have,
okay,
had solar or not. And we also have information about people's priorities. Do they care about a safe place for their pets?
Okay.
Do they have kids? And if so, is that weighing into their priorities and decision making? What are they going to do in certain scenarios? If they're given a scenario like, there's an extreme weather event, what are they going to do?
Sure.
Things like that. We've got a lot of really interesting information in this, and then another accompanying data set that's specifically looking at the factory-built home sector.
Okay.
So that's coming out pretty soon as well. So looking at those, we've got a couple of other publications about them. We saw a lot of regional variation
Sure.
in not only the types of technologies people are adopting. You can see how that might be affected by, like the fuel infrastructure of the region, but also priorities.
It's pretty cool. It gives you like a window then, like you just said, regional. It really gives a window into what's going on across the U.S. and how people do different things based on obviously weather, or like the environment, right? I'm assuming, and then obviously cost.
Yeah, cost is definitely a big driver, but also going even beyond cost. So learning where cost sits in the level of people's priorities,
Yeah, that's cool. That's a lot of good info. Like I would say like a data analyst, like if you're a data analyst, right, that's like your dream. You're like looking at all this stuff and how do you dive into it and make sense of it all.
Yep. And now it's
how long have you been working on that? Like how long is that study? Because you said it's been going on for a while. Do you have
it started a little bit before I joined the lab, which was in 2022.
Okay.
So data collection was being planned at that point, and starting to roll. And then we just obviously got the publication out. So the data sets published in this last year or so. So it's been going on for, a
couple of years, 3 or 4 years.
3 or 4 years, yeah.
Okay, awesome. So your career has taken you, it sounds pretty amazing. Like I would say, and I'm guessing, well, let's just put it this way, right? You have kids?
I do have kids, yep.
Okay, so how has it been being a woman and doing all what you're doing and handling the family side, which to me, right, it's great to have the academic and everything, but once you start bringing a family into the mix, it just adds another element, right? So talk about that. How has it been? What's been your experience about that? Like, how do you manage all that?
It's been awesome.
Okay.
It's been challenging. I alluded to time management, and that is a challenge that just becomes even more challenging when you have kids, but it has been so amazing. I think having my kids, I've got 2 kids, 3 and 1, and having them helps me focus on priorities.
Okay.
Make sure that all my time at work is very focused because I want time for them when I'm, done.
Yeah. And
I think having them be there for me at the end of the day makes it fun and keeps me balanced, I very rarely pull all-nighters, like in grad school because, you just can't. Yeah. And that makes me really more focused with my time. And I've also been, I think, incredibly blessed with the support that I've received from work.
Awesome. I love to hear that.
Generous leave policies and also teams that just understand,
Yeah.
Being able to have the flexibility that I do in my work and to be able to have the support that I do from my team. I don't think I would be thriving in my career if it weren't for that, for sure. So I think it's kind of a two-way street, having an awesome family and having an awesome work. And that balance is, I think, hard to find, but when you do, it can work really, really well.
What kind of advice would you give to the younger, younger for that are looking for, like you said, it's hard to find, but like, how do they, obviously you're blessed and you're lucky and all kind of the stars aligned, but do you think, like, what do you do to find that? Did you think you just fell into that? Or
you communicate.
Okay, communication.
You communicate, yes. There's a balance between communication and over communication.
Sure.
But I think it's hard to over communicate in terms of timelines and clarity and just expectations. When I say timelines, I mean the time when you're, at a crisis and you need flexibility, you should have communicated the need for that a long time ago.
Yeah.
Right. So understanding, going into a career, accepting a job when the structure is going to be there and the flexibility is going to be there for you, making sure that not only that there's going to be flexibility on their end, but they know that you're committed to doing exactly what you promised to do. Just making sure that both parties are really aligned on communication.
Sure.
So, I guess the stars aligned, but also we just communicated really well, and I was really aware of what I was getting into. And I think on the other ends, they're aware of who they were hiring, and that matched up for both of us.
That's awesome.
And that's important.
And I appreciate you sharing that, because sometimes, obviously, when I started my company, it was something on my mind for we'll call it work-life balance, but also as you bring on employees or people who have their own lives and their families, and and you have a lot of transition. I feel like we're a young company just in general, we are. And I sit there and I think to my head going how do you build a company with exactly what you're talking about, where you have families involved and you let you adopt, right? I don't want to call it policies, or how do you grow that, right? And a lot of people, like in corporate America, they'll have a certain policy and it's ready. It's already, people kind of take that for granted, and sometimes, but I love to hear these stories because it just reinforces the fact that I think, especially in our team, we just have so many awesome people that are women, and I have to, I get a chance to kind of listen about their families and stuff, but I also think it's so important how more companies still need to do more around this, because I feel like it's only going to get harder as we have younger and younger generations follow us, because there's just instant demand for everything. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
It does.
There's so much information at our fingertips. People want now, and they expect people to drop everything to get something down now. But if you're a parent or mother, you're how do I balance all that? So I that's a really good point, and it's setting boundaries, and I think that's part of that communication, right? Yeah. For both, because a workplace has a right to expect performance. Sure.
But you also have a right to put boundaries around your time. And I think communicating that makes everyone happier in the long run.
Totally.
And I like how you always refer to your people as people. And I think that for me is a litmus test. Do you feel like a person or an employee? Yeah. So feeling like a person and recognizing that there are people that work for you, that's huge. And I think that you're a person first, and then you're an employee.
Yeah, no, exactly. I look at everybody kind of like family. It's just hard to not to, right, when you're small. But you obviously want to protect everybody as much as you can, and you want to help them out. But I appreciate that. Well, if you had to, I guess I have one last question for you. But if you were, if you could talk to yourself, right, in the past, and tell yourself something, what would you tell yourself, right? If you could give yourself some advice, or what would you tell yourself? We'll say your 18-year-old self.
Breathe more. It's gonna work out. Because I've done a lot of things scared. I heard someone it said sometimes courage is just doing something even though you're scared. Yeah. Right. And I've done that, but I've also held my breath and hyperventilated, not just in the moment, but also let it weigh on me and have stress. And I'd say just continue to do those things that scare you, but also just remember that it's gonna work out. I'd tell my younger self, it's gonna be okay. Yeah. And continue to do those things that scare you, but have more confidence that it's going to work out. Is there anything else that you want to say before we let you go? By the way, I really appreciate your time. I know you could spend your time anywhere else, obviously, but I really do appreciate you coming in here, sharing your journey, a little bit about it. I'm sure there's so much you could dive into. I really think the journey, and your journey in particular, is super important. And I'm not just saying that. Why? Because there's, one of the reasons we started the podcast was really for STEM-minded people to hear other STEM folks talk about their experiences. And sometimes I felt like when I was in school, I felt like I missed a mentor, and I wish I'd heard more people's experiences. I obviously get to hear your parents, and you get to hear some family friends or whatever. But where was that? You know what I mean? In a day where everybody's about TikTok and this and that, whatever it is, I just felt like there was a need there. So I really do appreciate that. Do you have anything else you'd want to share before we let you go? Sure. Yeah, a couple things. Sure. Love to hear. You call me a STEM person, and I'd say I am, but I didn't start out that way. Okay. And I was scared to become one. I didn't think that I necessarily could at some points in my career. I mean, I liked math, I liked physics, that wasn't the problem, but at one point I was like, have I gone too far down? And this was like a year into undergrad that I can't transition to a STEM career. And I laugh now because knowing obviously, you can. But I would say don't be intimidated if you have interest. That's your inner self guiding you toward where you might need to be. So, go for it, learn about it. And then the other thing I'd say is talk to people. As an introvert, it's challenging for me sometimes to talk to people. It's getting easier and easier, the more you do it. But all of my opportunities and all of the exciting things that happened in my life started from talking to someone, and often someone that I was intimidated by, whether it was I should have been or not.
Sure.
I was.
Yeah.
Talk to people, even if you're an introvert, and you'd be surprised how well received, it can be when you just say, I'm interested in this. Can we learn more? Can we grab lunch, or can I just take 5 minutes of your time and ask you about something? So talk to people.
Great
You'd be
advice.
surprised what you learn.
Thank you so much. No, it's awesome advice. I appreciate that. Thank you, Kieren, for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was so fun.